crazy?
I know, it feels weird.
I know. I feel like I'm missing something.
I put it as a note that we can save gaming history for next week. That way we'll
Yeah,
dedicate the whole show to the lists.
because we got quite a few lists to get through here.
Yeah, I saw that.
I
Let's
had to
see.
pare down Tyler's a little bit. He likes to get granular, which I don't
He
mind. It's just
yeah, he's the new Brandon Rutledge.
yeah.
No, it's all good. Let me put
We'll
in this here
save the
code.
shout outs for I guess after we do ours. I guess I don't know. We'll put it
Yeah,
somewhere in there.
yeah, I'm good with that. Let's see. Watch now. As soon as this ad from Sonic is done.
Turn this
Okay.
on pause.
I think the move to Mondays was the right call.
Yeah, I think so too. It's nice to get everything done for the week too.
Yeah, it's because Monday's usually a pretty light day for me, so
Yeah,
it's
me
good to
too.
just get all the shows out of the way, get
Ramp,
everything uploaded, like all the promo content, and then just
yeah,
pepper it out through the rest of the week.
Rampage in the chat room.
Rampage.
Whew, I guess it's 6 o'clock on the dot. I guess we can. Oh, Joey Image is here too. What's up, Mr. Image?
Hey, Joey.
But we can go ahead and get our show started here if you are ready.
Yep, I got my new Jester's Court mug that Mr. Mike Evelyn
Oh,
dropped by at
nice.
my house today.
Yeah, I got this mug right here. It's got my initials on it. Mr. BJ DeBlow gave that to me for my birthday. One of our
Was he the
producers.
guy who was too chicken shit to start his own
Yeah,
podcast?
he's the guy officially too chicken shit to start his own podcast. And
I do love that ad, just the way you enunciate. He was too chicken shit.
I got to get some B-Res coffee and send up to old Rob from the old Rob podcast because he posted about drinking coffee. I said, "Is that B-Res coffee in that cup?" And he said, "Maybe somebody needs to send me a sample." So I might have to send him a sample here pretty soon.
I just need to check out his show.
It's so good. They just did their season ender today, episode 20, and there hasn't been a bad episode yet of that podcast. So if you're watching this on YouTube, Twitch, whatever, go check out the Old Rob podcast. OL''ROB podcast. If it's not a Netflix show in the next few years, there's no justice in the world because that dude has lived a life, man.
I've been looking for some new podcasts, so
Dude, you're gonna love it.
I'll check that out. But
But
yeah, I'm all set when you are.
let's do this. Here we go. In 3, 2, 1. Greetings, programs. We are back for another episode of the Nerd Cave Retro Show. My name is Jason Robbins.
And my name is Derek Diamond.
So it's started the week off nice. We were talking before the show. You know you're officially old when you hurt your back and you have no idea how you did it. You were fine 1 minute, and then the next minute you can barely walk. So that's how my day is going.
If that doesn't personify a Monday, I don't know what does. I don't think I'll ever know what does.
I'm fine sitting here, and I'm fine standing up. But it's the in-between those two that's killing me right now.
So did you just like start to get up and then it just started hurting, or what were the circumstances?
I had no idea. I was at work this morning, and I was fine. And then, like, the next minute, I was hurting, and I have no idea why. I didn't do anything. I didn't pick anything up. I didn't bend over. I was just walking, and all of a sudden, my back said, nope.
That's awful. I feel your pain though. That happens with my knees sometimes. Like sometimes it just hurts.
Yeah,
Sometimes
sucks.
it doesn't.
So I think after the shows tonight, I'm going to make a little trip over to CVS and pick me up some icy hot and rub down before I go to bed tonight. Hopefully I'll wake up feeling better.
If you have a tub, you should do like a hot bath.
Oh,
that usually helps me.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's usually what I do. Like when my knees start to hurt really bad, I'll just get some Epsom salt, pour it in like a bath so hot that you can see the steam coming off the water.
Welcome to the old cast where we tell you how to get past those aches and pains.
This episode of the old podcast is brought to you by Pepperidge Farms.
So this weekend, I picked up Shredder's Revenge on the. I know I'm gonna get slapped for this, but I got it on the Switch, and but I had credits that were just burning a hole in my pocket, and plus it was 10% off, so I went ahead and got it, and I really like that game. I will say it's a little short, but the replay value on it is very, very high. So if you haven't played it, I highly recommend it. And if anybody out there has it on the Switch and you want to play with me, and you're not on my friends list, just look me up on Twitter at JFunktastic, and we'll trade Nintendo profile things, and we'll play together.
Friend codes?
Yeah, fun codes.
Yeah, I still haven't gotten it yet. I get paid on Fridays, so that's when I'll likely be pulling the trigger. I've been seeing on Twitter everybody talking about how great of a game it is, and I want to play it in the worst kind of way.
Dude, it's one of those games that if this game would have existed when I was a kid, I would have literally lost my mind. It's just the everything about it's great. The way it plays, the way it looks. I mean, it's such a throwback to the 80s and 90s. I mean, it is in my opinion, I mean, nothing against the original Ninja Turtle comic books from Eastman and Laird. They're something else entirely, and nothing against like the Ninja Turtle iterations through the years, but to me, the definitive Ninja Turtles is that period from like the cartoon through the early 90s. And just that throwback to that era that's Ninja Turtles to me.
No, I totally agree. It's the first thing I think of. And I liked the cartoon they did in the early 2000s. I didn't entirely hate the last Michael Bay movie because it reminded me of a live action version of the cartoon.
I still haven't seen
from
it.
The 80s. I won't say much better because that's a bit of a stretch, but it's better than the first Michael Bay movie. There's still quite a bit that I don't like about it, but it's cool, like seeing Rocksteady and Bebop in live action, Krang in live action, seeing the Technodrome is really cool.
Yeah,
but that's really about it. But yeah, I'm in complete agreement with you. When I think of Ninja Turtles, I think of the 1987 cartoon.
Yeah. And Rampage does say in the chat room that it is on Xbox and it's available for free on Game Pass. Well, I mean, it's technically not free, but it comes with Game Pass. And I did check out cloud gaming yesterday afternoon. I think I'm able to do it on my iMac, so I may try that out for a month. They give you the first month for $1. I think I may try that out this week and let everybody know my impressions of that, of being able to play it on an actual Apple device.
Yeah, I'd be curious to try that out myself.
But,
so I might look into that as well.
So, I mean, it's only $1 to try it out. So, why not?
Yeah.
But you play anything this weekend? Any gaming, or were you too busy with your with your movie stuff? You were doing some things for the new movie.
Oh yeah, I haven't talked about that lately, but yeah, we're getting kind of close to being ready to shoot my next movie.
Awesome.
I've got both Steve and Kevin coming back, who both Steve Wise and Kevin Almodovar. They'll be back in their same roles they were for the Parker Syndrome, which really makes me happy. We did some auditions this past Saturday. I've got a couple that I'm doing over Zoom tomorrow and Thursday, and then after that, make casting decisions, lock down a couple of locations, and then hope to shoot it in early August. So
that's awesome.
It's so the script, I started writing it even before we shot the Parker Syndrome. I've just been tweaking it slowly but surely and other life things have come up. So
Well, you're ahead of the
it
game
feels.
on me. I still haven't gotten my other script back up and running after the pandemic shut everything down. So you're going to inspire me to get cracking on that again.
I'm not an inspiration to anyone, so don't say that, sir.
If
But
you need me to come over and be sound again, I'm there for you.
okay. And whenever you and Wally get your next thing made, I'm always good to get coffee.
Oh yeah, awesome. But we're not going to do news or video game history tonight. What we are going to do is we're going to talk about our top 5 games of the 90s. We have our lists and we also have your list. And let's see, do I have a little theme song here to play for going into here? I'll just play this.
I love the Power Glove. It's so bad.
So that brings us into our top 5 list. Do you want to start us off this evening for the top 5?
Yeah, sure. Do you want me to go through my full list, or do we want to bounce back and forth? Like I do my number 5, you do your number 5, so on and so forth.
We can do that. We can bounce back and forth. That sounds good.
Okay, so I'll save my honorable mentions for last, and I will say I initially had a list of 15 honorable mentions, but I scaled those down to how many did I put? 3, 4, 5. Okay, I've only put 6. So cut that down by about half, but easily could have put more than 15 because the 90s is my favorite decade of gaming. Played a ton of games that still resonate with me so well today. My list is not going to be a game changer or really any surprise to longtime listeners of the show, but my number 5 is Banjo-Kazooie. Of course, made by Rare, released, I believe, in 1998 for the N64. I remember reading about this on IGN as well as Nintendo Power and being really excited for it because the 90s was such a great decade for platformers, both 2D and 3D.
Oh, yeah.
Mario 64 really changed the game as far as how platforming is done because it introduced 3D platforming to the world. But Banjo-Kazooie, to me, it perfected it. And it's still one of the standards of 3D platforming to me because there's so many new things to discover. There's such a great variety of worlds, from Mumbo's Mountain to Treasure Trove Cove to being in a giant trash disposer in Clanker's Cavern. You've got Click Clock Wood, which is the same world, but you have to go through it in all 4 different seasons. You have jigsaw pieces to collect, music notes, all kinds of cool stuff to really, it keeps you busy. And it's a pretty good sized game. And TUI really expanded on it once it was released a couple of years later. But I will always have a soft spot for Banjo-Kazooie. I love that universe. I wish that these games were still around. And if I were to ever make it as like a big time filmmaker, I would love to make a Banjo-Kazooie animated series. I think that would be so cool.
That would make a good Pixar flick.
Oh, 100%. With that animation style?
Oh,
absolutely.
Yeah.
But yeah, Banjo-Kazooie, it's usually in my top 5 of any gaming list, and so it's no surprise that this is my number 5.
See, and I struggled with it. You mentioned Mario 64. I struggled with whether or not to put that on my honorable mentions list, but I took it off because I know it's an important game in the Mario franchise. It's important for 3D gaming altogether. But my list still comprises up of things that I still play, and I don't go back and play Mario 64 at all. I mean, I have good memories of it. I have good reverence for it, but I can't go back and play that game anymore.
It's an important game, and they did a polished version for the DS when it first came out, and you could also play as Luigi, Yoshi, and Wario, which added a cool new dynamic to it because each of them had their own specific abilities, and plus the graphics were a little more polished. And they did the same for Ocarina of Time, Majora's Mask. So it's honestly a better experience on that than on the Nintendo 64. But we can't sit here and say that it's not an important game because it is.
Yeah. My number 5 is, of course, Super Mario World. I think as far as platformers go, it's up there with one of the greatest of all time. Still play that game to this day. Every time I play it, it brings me back to Christmas 1991 when I got the Super Nintendo, and plugged it into the TV, and that first time you turn it on and you hear the coin plink and then the din 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 din, and it's just that moment is burned into my memory. And you can't deny that Super Mario World is, I mean, I love Super Mario Brothers 3. Don't get me wrong. I love that game so much, but Super Mario World is one of the greatest games ever made. I mean, ever. You can't deny that. That is objective, an objective truth. And it's an important game, and I think it's one of those games that will still be absolutely 100% playable, 100 years from now.
If you told me that Mario World was a perfect game, I wouldn't dispute it.
Because
I really have no knock against it. The graphics still hold up to this day. The soundtrack is honestly underrated. Like, I love the music from Mario World. I could put that on my phone and listen to, I know there's not a ton of tracks on it, but every song, every theme in this game fits the environment perfectly. And it's got that perfect like little
piano, like that, the ragtime stuff, and just, God, it's just so all around just an absolute perfect game.
Mm-hmm. Nope, I don't disagree with anything you said. Let's see. My number 4 is another game I've talked about quite extensively on this show, and that is Earthbound.
This is surprising because I figured this would have been higher on your list.
Well, if you look at what's higher, you'll see why. But yeah, in normal circumstances, it would probably be 3, maybe 2. It's my favorite RPG of all time, and I remember just discovering it almost by accident because it came in a huge box, because it came with the strategy guide, some scratch and sniff cards, and I think it came with something else, but I can't remember. And it just looked really cool because it had a picture of one of the villains from the game, Starman, on it. I was like, oh, this looks cool. And it had the kind of like claymation type of art style on the cover. And I plugged it in and started playing it, and I just got sucked into the world immediately. And it's in playing through it as an adult, I realized that it's almost like the Japanese satiring Western culture, because there's a lot of like quirky dialogue and humor that's in it, and some of it, is really kind of pushing the envelope a little bit as far as what would be a rated E game and what wouldn't be. Like, nothing really bad, but when you're a kid, you're like, oh, I can't believe they put this in the game. But it's not a very, I won't say it's a very long game. It's got, plenty of towns and areas that you can go to. So you spend a lot of time in this world. And it's another one that I think would make a great series or a great movie. It's got a little bit of a Goonies and E.T. vibe kind of to it, because the stars of the game are kids, and they're essentially having to save the world from this alien entity that's come to destroy it. I like the characters. Another great soundtrack. I have nothing bad to say about Earthbound. I played through it again a couple of months ago. It's one of those, but like, and you mentioned Mario World. This is a game that I like to play through maybe once a year, every other year.
Have you played, it's on the NES shop, well, not the shop, but on Switch Online, the NES online, I think it's called Earthbound Origins,
Beginnings.
Or Beginnings, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep, I hope to review it next month.
Oh, cool. Awesome. Yep. I wanted to see what you said about it before diving into it.
Yeah, I like it so far. I mean, it's not, you can tell the graphics aren't as advanced as the SNES, but I mean, it plays similarly. So I've been liking it.
And for my number 4, we go into computer gaming and The Seventh Guest. One of those games that it might be kind of cheesy and not hold up that great as far as the acting and stuff in it, because they did use full motion video in the game, but the atmosphere of the game, the story it told, and this game is the direct lineage of why I love games with puzzles, like puzzle games. This is where that love started for me. I still play this to this day. I have it in my Steam account. it still holds up to play. I mean, some of the puzzles are a little rough, and I don't know how I solved some of them without the internet when I was a kid, because I was like 17 years old when this game came out. But I made it through the game. I used to listen to the soundtrack all the time. It came with the CD soundtrack and everything. But man, that game is still to this day, is so cool. And if you've never played it, I highly suggest you go give it a whirl. And you'll see that, it was kind of ahead of its time. I mean, it was one of those games that when it came out, it was like, holy crap, we're doing this now. When you play that type of game, when you're like, okay, this is a whole new ball game now. So it was an important game and one of my favorite games of the 90s. Absolutely.
I still need to play it. I feel like I would actually like it from what you've told me and from what I've watched of gameplay and screenshots and whatnot.
Mm.
It's a genre that I just haven't really dove into like I should. So one of these days I'll play the Seventh Guest.
I mean, it doesn't hold up as far as like, it's very slow. I mean, it is like a point and click game, and you're very slowly moving through this, this big mansion, and you're watching, you do a puzzle, and you watch a cutscene, and then you got to move through the mansion. It's very slow and plodding, but if you put yourself into the 90s mindset, like this is the first time we ever did this, I think you'll get into it.
Well, if you're like me and you just never left the 90s mindset, then you'll love
it. Same here.
Okay, so now we're going to get into the cliche portion of my list, but it's the truth. My number 3 is Sonic the Hedgehog 2. Still to this day, perfection when it comes to Sonic the Hedgehog. Mm. I think the first game still doesn't get the credit that it should. I know Joey Image mentioned it. I think it was last week or it might have been the week before on the show about how the first Sonic is a great game and a lot of fun, but there's just something about Sonic 2 that when I go back and play it, even now as an adult, it still captures that same magic that I felt when I played this, because this was the first Sonic game I ever played. I didn't play Sonic 1 until after I played Sonic 2 and 3.
Yeah.
Which is a little strange, but the stories, there's not much of a storyline to these games, so you can just kind of hop in wherever and just pick up, immediately. Where to start with this game? I mean, it's from the moment that you see Sonic and Tails pop up in that circle and you hear the dun 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 dun, and then you dive into Emerald Hill Zone and you see just the brightness of the blues and the greens and the dun 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 dun, that just really catchy soundtrack that carries through the whole game. And the special stages are still my favorite because you have to run through these half pipes and collect a certain number of rings by the time you get to a certain part of the stage. Otherwise you're going to lose, and you keep going until you get the Chaos Emerald. There's nothing bad that I have to say about Sonic 2. I'm probably going to pick up Sonic Origins this weekend when it comes out, because I've still got a GameStop gift card that I haven't used since Christmas. So I think that's what I'm going to use to get that. I know people are a little sketched out about Sonic Origins and the fact that it's games that have been available numerous times, but they're remastered. There's some cool special features with it, so I'm going to get it. I'm going to play through Sonic 2 again. When I think of Sonic the Hedgehog, there are two things I think of: the comic series and this game.
Yeah, and Joey said in the chat room that he got his first Genesis about a year and a half ago at a flea market, $30 total, and it came with Sonic. That's not a bad deal at all. And the same, I was a Nintendo kid. I never had a Genesis, but as far as the mini consoles go, the Nintendo Mini, Super Nintendo, Genesis, TurboGrafx, all the mini systems, I still say the best one and worth the money is the Genesis one.
100%.
I can't wait for the second one to come out. I hope they release that soon.
I'm ready to find out what all's on it, because they haven't released the list of all the games yet.
And and you were right about the graphics. Like, the Genesis didn't have the color palette that the Super Nintendo did, but man, they really made Sonic games like the brightest games you could see. It's
Mhm.
crazy.
And Sonic 3 looks great too. You know, you can tell there's a little more detail in the graphics. Like if you look at the Sonic sprite in 2 compared to 3, there's a little more detail, but
Yeah.
I I prefer the look of Sonic 2, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah, I mean, those games just got better looking as they went along, you know.
Mm-hmm.
For my number 3, of course, I'm sure this is one of yours too. Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past. Another one
Never
of
heard
those
of it.
games. Yeah, one of those games that, same as Super Mario World, I got it that Christmas when I got the Super Nintendo. I got Link to the Past, F-Zero, Final Fight, and of course Super Mario World came with it. And playing Legend of Zelda over that Christmas break into the spring, you know, just playing that game and over again, like beat it, play it again, beat it, play it again, beat it. That game is so ridiculously replayable, and it's always fun. Always.
Yeah, I mean, I, I don't know what else I can say about it other than it's one of my favorite games ever. You know, it's arguably my favorite game of all time because it's a game that I've replayed so many times. And when I think of The Legend of Zelda, Link to the Past is it's Zelda perfection
Mhm. I wish
is
they
really
would
all I
give
can
it.
say.
I wish they would give it the Link's Awakening treatment and completely
Uh,
remaster it for the Switch. I mean, they have the engine. You know, they've already got the everything they need to just remaster that whole game for the Switch. I would gladly pay another 40, $50 for that game to have an updated version of it.
I bet they're sitting on that for an anniversary of that game. Either that or like an anniversary of just the franchise as a whole. They might be like, oh, here's Link to the Past remastered. I
Yeah.
love if they remastered the original Zelda.
Yeah, that too. I don't know why they don't just redo. I would even play part 2 if they remastered it. I would give it another chance.
Yeah. Even though there is a better version of it out there called Agalos.
Yeah, true.
Let's see. My number 2 is you mentioned it in your list, Super Mario World. I can remember exactly where I was in the house I grew up in when I played this game for the first time. Like you said, when you hear the little ding for the coin and you hear that catchy theme song that is forever ingrained into my mind, you knew you were in for a great experience when it came to the universe of Mario. And Mario 3 is a fantastic game and one of the best Mario games of all time. But Mario Brothers, the franchise, to me, is synonymous with Super Mario World. It is the first game that I think of when I think of Mario.
Mm.
I have played through this game and beaten it countless times. It's one of those games, like I said with Earthbound, that I make it a point to play through once a year.
Yeah.
I've done that. You know, there was a gap when I didn't have my Super Nintendo, and then when it came out for Game Boy Advance, and I just like I lost my mind. I'm like, oh, I get to play a handheld version
Mhm.
of one of my favorite games of all time. Played through it then, play through it now on the Switch. It introduced Yoshi, who's one of the most popular characters in the entire franchise. I know it didn't introduce the Koopa Kids, but I like the boss fights in Mario World more than Mario 3.
Yeah.
You also have the ghost house, you have the special stages, which are still, I won't say unbearably hard, but they're a great challenge.
Mm.
If you consider yourself a Mario expert and you want a challenge, go through the special stage
Yeah.
in Mario World. I remember beating it for the first time and I didn't know what was going to happen. And then you like the world of Dinosaur Land turns into fall and the enemies are subtly changed a little bit. And it offered like a whole new playthrough experience. So
Yeah. And you
I
know,
love Mario World.
there wouldn't be Super Mario World without Super Mario 3. I think Mario 3, laid the groundwork for Super Mario World. But like you said, they just took basically everything that they did for Super Mario 3 and just perfected it for the Super Nintendo.
Mm-hmm.
And for my number 2, of course, is Star Tropics, one of my favorite NES games and one of my favorite games of all time. I know that number 2, the second one was terrible. It came out way too late in the Nintendo's life, and I think that's probably why we haven't gotten another Star Tropics game since. But if there's anything I could ask of Nintendo, is it's please give me another Star Tropics game. Just that's all I want. Just another Star Tropics game in that universe, not what they tried to do with the second game, but go back to the islands and everything that happened, everything they did for that first game, because it was sort of like that it was that overhead view that Zelda had for Link to the Past, but done for the Nintendo. And it was weird the way you moved in the game, but it kind of worked in its favor. And I think a lot of people that didn't like it should go back and give it another chance, because I think that game, there was something special there, and I think Nintendo just kind of let slip through their fingers.
Yeah, I think had they released Star Tropics 2 for the Super Nintendo, it may still be around.
Yeah.
I never understood why they continued to stretch out the life of the NES, years into the Super Nintendo's lifespan.
Yeah, you're 4 years into the Super Nintendo at that point. Nobody's playing Nintendo games at that point. Nintendo's became the console that you became the hand-me-down console at that point. The older brother would get the Super Nintendo and then be like, here, you can have my Nintendo, to the little brother. Like, nobody's going back. I personally bought Star Tropics 2 when it came out in 94. I had to dig my Nintendo out of storage, at my mom and dad's house, like in the shed or something. It was like in a box up on a shelf. I had to go dig it out so I could play Star Tropics 2. I think I got like 20 minutes into that game, and I was like, I have made a mistake.
Yeah, and not to knock the NES, but it was like, the Wizard of Oz, when you're in black and white, and then you turn on the Super Nintendo and everything's in color.
Exactly.
Like, it's just, there's a pretty noticeable difference. But I like Star Tropics. I haven't completed the first game, but I have played it a pretty good bit. I remember after we started the show and you were talking about Star Tropics quite a bit, and I went through and I played a little bit of it, and I like it. Like, I do wish they would have, extended that franchise. But I think had it been released for Super Nintendo, I don't know if it would be to the level of Legend of Zelda, but it may still be around.
It would have been up there, I think. But I mean, just for the original Star Tropics, I spent my entire, I had the Nintendo Power issues that were about. They gave it like 2 or 3 issues to talk about that game, and I spent that whole summer of 1990 playing Star Tropics. Like, that's what I did that summer, and I just loved that game so much.
Yeah, who knows? Maybe one day Nintendo will surprise us and they'll bring it back.
Maybe. I doubt it.
Yeah, well, one can hope.
Yeah.
So I might surprise you a little bit with my number 1. In the years that we've been doing this show, I have been praising Ocarina of Time, and I still very much love that game. But in going back and playing through that and what I'm about to name, I got to give the edge to Link to the Past. Mm-hmm. And Link to the Past is my number 1. Not a shock by any stretch, but like you mentioned, to me, it's a perfect game. I have 0 issues with it. You essentially get 2 games in one, because you start out in Hyrule trying to find the 3 pendants so you can get the Master Sword. And you think, oh, well, that might be the end of the game. But no, you get transported to the Dark World. That's the same size, but you got to go through more dungeons that are immensely harder. It's still pretty challenging playing it through it as an adult until you get, the tunic upgrades, because you lose like a third of your life every time you get hit. But this game, gameplay wise, soundtrack, storyline, characters, because I know it'll never happen, but I actually really like Aghanim as a villain.
Yeah.
Like I know he was just like a puppet for Ganon, but I would have loved if he was his own person and he would have been like someone who could come back in a later Zelda game.
Yeah.
Like I liked the idea of this evil wizard taking over Hyrule. And if Zelda were ever made into a movie or a series, this is the game I would adapt. Would be Link to the Past.
I would too. The game's so good, and just the music, the graphics, that overhead view, the controls. I mean, everything about that game is perfection.
Yeah, and it's a game that I would give. I'm pretty sure when I reviewed it on the first episode of the show, I gave it a 10 because I have zero complaints with it.
And here we
it's
are
one
6 years later, and it's still a 10.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's what else can I say other than it's probably my favorite game of all time. Like my 3 favorite games are probably this, Ocarina of Time, and Super Mario World. If I had to pick my 3 actual favorite games. And I love Ocarina of Time. I think it's a great game. It was great to walk out into Hyrule Field for the first time in 3D and see what was going to happen. But I got to give the edge to Link to the Past.
I don't blame you. I mean, it would have been higher on my list, but this game here is one of my favorite games of all time. The original, I played it for the original PlayStation. I played it on the N64. I beat it so many times I can't even count. I played the remake, the remaster, Resident Evil 2.
I knew this would be high on your list.
One of the greatest gaming experiences of my life. Even going back playing it's probably easier to go back and play it on the original PlayStation version. But even still, even playing it on the old N64, those tank controls are just kind of bad. But there's just something to be said about the atmosphere of that game. You know, the level of immersion in that game, and then to have them remake it and remaster it a few years ago. I've played through it so many times. It's sickening how many times I've played through this game, and I just love it so much. That's why it is number 1 on my list.
I had a feeling it would at least be in your top 3.
Yeah.
I wasn't expecting it to be number 1, but I thought it would at least be like 2 or 3. But that's cool.
I mean, my number 1 flip-flops depending on the day. I mean, one day it'll be Legend of Zelda Link to the Past. The next day it'll be Star Tropics. Next day it'll be Resident Evil 2. But I think probably the game I've played the most in my life is probably Resident Evil 2 in all its different iterations.
One day I'll play it.
You should. Especially the remake. The remake is so good.
I know you've praised it immensely.
But we'll go through our honorable mentions real quick before we read everybody else's top 5s. I'll just go through mine real quick. Of course, Super Metroid is an honorable mention. That game, I mean, what else could we say about Super Metroid? I mean, it's up there with, you know, the greatest Super Nintendo games and greatest games of all time. But it was hard not to put it on my list, but it definitely had to land in the honorable mentions. Legend of the Mystical Ninja, same thing. It's a great game. I was just playing this the other day. I love this game. I'll never not love it. It's so good. And I think it's another franchise that should still have games made today. I don't know why they don't. It's such a cool story and gameplay. And of course, Shadows of the Empire for the N64 should still be canon. I'm still hurt that Disney said no, it is not canon. In my heart, it is still canon. Damn it. Star Wars Rogue Squadron for the N64. That game is still so good. Then you can get the expansion pack to give it another 4 megabytes of graphical power for the game. And I still love playing that game to this day. And of course, Doom. How could you not have a list? How could you have a list of 90s games and not have Doom on there? I have so many memories of Doom. Playing Doom on the school computer. during my off, lunch hour and in my computer classes when we were done with our work, playing Doom on the computer. So many memories of that game, and we wouldn't have the first-person shooters we have today if it wasn't for Doom. It's still around.
So you had a better experience of playing the game than watching the movie?
Yeah.
Minus the first-person sequence, that movie was awful.
Was so bad.
Yeah, it was really bad. My honorable mentions, of course, Ocarina of Time. I talked about it a second ago. One of my 3 favorite games of all time. I wanted to restrict myself to one game per franchise, so that's why it's not in the top 5. Pokemon Yellow would have been probably number 6 if we had done a top 10. I really liked Red and Blue, but when they released this special edition and kind of adapted the storyline and some of the characters from the cartoon, loved it. Plus Pikachu followed you around. They changed the way the characters looked to reflect the cartoon, which I thought was really cool. So still my favorite Pokemon game of all time. Super Metroid, we've talked about that game immensely. It's this and probably Metroid Fusion are my 2 favorite Metroid games of all time. Secret of Mana, another great RPG for the Super Nintendo in the 90s. I know there was a remaster. It was done in 3D, I think, for the PS4.
I think,
but I heard it wasn't. But I heard it wasn't that great, so I haven't bothered to play it. But this is another game that I've played through countless times, and I wish it was more relevant. I know the franchise is, expanded since then, but it's still my favorite. Turtles in Time, another game I played through countless times. Ninja Turtle beat 'em up perfection, in my opinion.
That almost made my honorable mentions too.
And I love the original arcade game, but Turtles in Time is just, you can get sucked in that game for hours. And last but not least, Star Fox 64. I really like the original one as well, but there's so many countless possibilities that you could go through in playing Star Fox 64. I mentioned this last week. It was really not that long of a game, but because of the different routes you could take, it offered great replayability.
We talked about it last week. Like, why is Star Fox not still a franchise making games?
I don't know.
Nintendo has so many good franchises that they're just sitting on.
You give me a good Star Fox game, and I will buy it day one, easily.
Yeah,
I love that universe. I just wish they would go back to it.
Give me another Star Tropics game. I'm there. You give me Star Fox, I'm there. Just give us something.
But they haven't been able to recapture the magic of this game in its sequels. Like Star Fox Adventures was an entirely different type of game, so I almost don't count it.
Yeah.
But there was a game for 3DS, I think, called, or it might have been for regular DS, called Star Fox Command.
I don't remember that one.
And then there was Star Fox Zero for, I think, the Wii U. But it just there was Star Fox Assault for the
Wii U. Like that whole console just went right past me.
There was Star Fox Assault for the GameCube that was pretty good, but the peak of this franchise is still 64 in my opinion.
Yeah. Before we talk about your top 5 list that our listeners and patrons and everybody else sent to us, Derek has some shout outs.
Yes, as always, we'd like to shout out our awesome patrons over at patreon.com/NerdCaveRetro. We want to shout out Daniel Salmon, Tyler Watson, AxeBlade07, Armez Jackson, Hand Solo, Carlos Longoria, a.k.a. Rampage, Staff Sergeant Sketch, Gus and Penny, Matthew Salmon, Mike Evelyn, which I got to give him a shout out. For those who are watching the video version, he got me the sweet Jester's Court coffee mug.
That's a nice mug.
That he dropped off at my house today. So getting to break this in while we do the show. And Mr. Brandon Rutledge, thank you all so much for your continued contributions and keeping the lights on for us here at the Nerd Cave Retro Show. And if you want to be a part of our awesome Patreon community, you get early access to our fun commentary tracks that we've done. And I've lost count of the number of shows and movies that we've done between Gargoyles, Batman, the animated series, Darkwing Duck, Chippendale Rescue Rangers, movies like National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation,
Mm-hmm.
Clue, Super Mario Brothers, The Wizard. The list goes on and on. And if you want early access to those, you get them weeks before everybody else. Just head over to patreon.com/NerdCaveRetro. And if you want to be a part of our awesome Patreon community, just give us your uh, proper social media information, whether it's Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, so we can give you a proper shout out.
And I think for this month, for our commentary, since it lost the poll last month, I think in honor of Kenobi, we should go ahead and do the first episode of, what was it, Rebels and
Clone Wars.
Clone Wars. I think that's a good idea. We should do that for this month.
Sure. I'm all for that.
Joey says we should do voiceovers to movies where we record our own dialogue over them. That would actually be kind of funny, but that's a lot of work.
Could we pull off a MST3K type show?
We could. I mean, we'd have to do, I don't know. That would be kind of, we'd have to do that in Discord. We wouldn't be able to stream it.
Yeah. I do like that idea, though.
I like the idea.
Yeah.
We'll talk about it.
Yeah. Maybe we can do that, like later on in the year.
But these lists came from our listeners and patrons. I got these lists off of Twitter, Discord, and our Patreon. So if I missed anybody, like if you give them to us on Facebook or anything, if I missed them, I'm really sorry. Let me know. And next week I will add them to the list. To start us off, we have Mr. Mike Evelyn, who from B-Res Coffee and at Jester8082 on Twitter. He gave us a Link to the Past, Super Mario World, Ocarina of Time, Fallout, and Star Fox.
I have never played a Fallout game.
I've tried to play some of the Bethesda RPGs, but I just can't get into them.
See, I have to be very picky with RPGs because I get lost in them and I will lose track of time. So I'm just very picky about those types of games. I have friends who swear by them and say they're great games, and I believe them, but I've just never really experienced them myself.
I Am the Rampage wrote to us and said his number 5 is Earthworm Jim 1 and 2, the Genesis version, Donkey Kong Country 1, Mega Man X, Super Mario World, and Sonic the Hedgehog 2.
I feel bad that I didn't list Donkey Kong Country.
Yeah, I'm surprised.
Because I love the first two games. I mean, they would be in honorable mentions for sure.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
My
Donkey
only
Kong
problem
Country's
with
great.
that game is it's so damn hard.
The first one, yeah. I've still to this day have not beat it.
Yeah, I don't think I have either.
I've beat the sequels, but I haven't beat the second one fully because you have to get all the bonus coins to do the true final boss.
That game just takes a lot of memorization to get through. That's the key to that game is memorization, and I just couldn't remember everything to get through that game.
I do love them, though.
Yeah, they're good. I mean, they're great games. They're beautiful, but man, they are on the difficulty scale. They make Super Star Wars look like, I don't know, like bust a move.
That gives me flashbacks to playing Empire Strikes Back a couple of weeks ago.
From Armez Jackson himself, his honorable mentions are Sonic 2, Super Metroid, Link's Awakening, and Mortal Kombat 2. I didn't even think of Mortal Kombat 2. I put a lot of quarters in that game.
Yeah, the first one was another honorable mention that didn't make the final cut. But two's a great game too.
His number 5 is Gran Turismo. That's the first racing game we've seen. Let's see, number 4, Pokemon Red and Blue. Opposite of you. You had yellow. He's got red and blue.
Yeah, Red and Blue are still great games.
3, Streets of Rage 2. Great. Fantastic beat-em-up game. Number 2, Street Fighter 2. And number 1, Super Mario World. I'm surprised Street Fighter 2 didn't land on our list either. I played a lot of Street Fighter 2 back in the day. And at The Butcher himself, at THE_BUTCHR. Go give him a follow. In his number 5, Woodruff and the Schnibble. Have you ever heard of that?
I have not, but you got me curious.
Yeah, I'm going to have to look that up. 4, GoldenEye. 3, Earthworm Jim. 2, Super Mario World starts off the 90s great. And number 1, none other than Legend of Zelda: Link to the Past.
I had a feeling that would be his number one.
Yeah, same, Joe. He says, MK1 and 2, I probably put enough quarters in those that I could have bought the arcade cabinet. You're not kidding, because my first job, the restaurant I worked at was a pizza restaurant. And as a teenager, I probably spent half my paycheck putting quarters into that Mortal Kombat 2 machine on my breaks, playing the other employees, because that's all we did was play Mortal Kombat 2, like on our breaks. And before and after work, we'd get to work. We'd stay at work late just playing Mortal Kombat 2.
I'd be interested to be the person who would have to empty the quarters out and count them.
He had to come
like just to see
every other day.
Yeah, just to see like how much money that game made.
And his honorable mentions are Turtles in Time, Mario 64, Metal Gear Solid. It's the first Metal Gear we've seen on the list here, and Streets of Rage 2.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have Donner, Party of 5. His number 5 is Tony Hawk Pro Skater. That was one that almost landed on my list too.
That game is great for the soundtrack alone.
Oh, God. That game, me and my roommate that I live with, his name's Phil. He was a professional skateboarder. And we played Tony Hawk 1, 2, and 3. Started off on his plate. I had the Xbox and the GameCube, the N64. He had PlayStation 1 and 2. And we played countless hours of the first 3 Tony Hawk games. Like hundreds of hours of that game, of those games.
You wouldn't think at face value that those games would be so like replayable, but they are. Like once you learn how to do it, man, you can get sucked in that game for hours.
Then we got some of the codes, the cheat codes, where you could do the grinds without with the balance thing being perfect. So you could literally do like billion point grinds across the entire map. It was nuts.
Yeah.
And then number 4 is his number 4 is Myst. Myst was a good game too. Not quite as good. I mean, it's a great game, but I didn't personally like it as much as Seventh Guest because it didn't quite have that dark tone to it.
Mm-hmm.
His number 3 is Tekken 3. Number 2, StarCraft. Wow, I forgot StarCraft even came out in the 90s, man.
Yeah, I always thought it was a 2000s thing.
And of course, his number 1 is Banjo-Kazooie as well.
Yep. 3D platforming for perfection.
And he says a little all over the place, but that's fine. But all these games either A, changed my perception of what a game can do, or B, Tony Hawk Pro Skater got me into punk music. And yeah, those soundtracks are awesome for those games.
Yep. They're perfect for them.
To close us out, we have Mr. Tyler Watson, who got his list in just under the wire. Right before the show, I looked in the email, and there it was. I was wondering where he was at. He was starting to worry me there for a minute. His honorable mentions are Star Fox 64, The King of Fighters 98. I forgot about that game, too.
Yeah, me too.
That's the problem doing like the entire 90s, because there were so many good games that came out in the 90s.
My favorite decade of gaming.
And Legend of Zelda, Link to the Past. I'm surprised that's not on his top 5. Sonic the Hedgehog 2, Marvel vs. Capcom. I forgot about that one. That should have been somewhere on the honorable mentions, because a lot of quarters went into that game, too.
We failed.
And Joey Image said, what was that, Smurfs and the Kibble? What was the name of that game that he put on there? Woodruff and the Schnibble.
Woodruff and the Schnibble.
The butcher's list.
I'm looking this up.
You got to look that up and see what that is. You might have to review that for us. Let's see. Marvel vs. Capcom just said that. Resident Evil, the first one, still a good game, but I prefer the GameCube remake of that, which still holds up to today. You can get it on the Switch, and it's very good. Lunar 2, Eternal Blue, Final Fantasy IV, and Doom. First Final Fantasy we've seen on the list. All y'all talking about you love Final Fantasy, and Tyler's the only one that put a Final Fantasy game on his list. Now that's the fan right there.
We'll talk a little bit more about Final Fantasy in a bit.
Yeah. Number 5, his actual list. Number 5, Pokemon Red, Blue, and Yellow. The game that started a phenomenon, a deceptively simple RPG. It hooks you in with its colorful cast of collectible creatures and their collisions and combat, and it doesn't let go. I personally haven't missed a main series game since 1998.
Yeah, I've been kind of in and out of the Pokemon series since Gold and Silver. I think I played through Black and White several years ago, but I still hold a very special place for Red, Blue, and Yellow. I mean, Yellow wouldn't exist if Red and Blue didn't exist first. But yeah, those games still, like the original 150 Pokemon, the original region, the original characters. I love it. I still get sucked into those games.
I've still yet to play a Pokemon game at all.
We should do something where like maybe we dedicate a month to like you play games that like I'm known for playing.
You know what?
And,
I'll tell you
and
what.
vice versa.
I just got a Super Game Boy the other day at the flea
You
market.
did?
You should tell me what the best Game Boy Pokemon game is, and if I can find it, I will purchase it and play it on the Super Nintendo.
I mean, I would say Yellow, but you're not a huge Pokemon fan, so like the cartoon references aren't really going to matter. So either that or Red and Blue.
Okay, I'll look.
So any of those three, I think you'll be good.
Let's see. His number 4, Metal Gear Solid, still the best one in the series. I've beaten this game at least 12 times. I know because 2 characters get different outfits every third playthrough. Sounds like me with Resident Evil 2. I tried so hard to get Tofu. There was this hidden character you could play in Resident Evil 2 called Tofu, and you had to get you had to beat the game a certain amount of times, and you had to get like a certain letter grade before you could get to him, and I never could get him.
I didn't even know that was a thing.
Mm-hmm. I don't know if they ever added that into the remake or not. I'm going to have to research that. And his number 3 is Street Fighter 2, the granddaddy of them all. Not the first fighting game, but the first one to do it right. So much so that most fighting games after adopted the style that SF2 set, Ken is still his favorite character. I always liked Dhalsim. Yoga Fire, Yoga Flame.
I'm cliche. Ryu is mine.
Y'all some basic bitches.
Hey, you ain't got to argue with me on that. I know it.
It's kind of funny. I grew up to look like Dhalsim. Number 2, Chrono Trigger. Hands down the greatest RPG ever made. I got to finish Chrono Trigger. I started a game and never finished it. That's not an opinion, it's a fact. Fantastic story, great characters, superior music, multiple endings. This game has it all. It was a dream game as it brought together the creative teams from Square's Final Fantasy and Enix's Dragon Quest back when they were 2 separate companies and were in competition with one another. I do need to go back and finish Chrono Trigger because I liked what I was playing up to that point. I just I had other things going on and couldn't really get into it, but the graphics and music were great, and I was getting into it. I just didn't have time when I was playing it.
I think had I played this game when it was released, it would probably take Earthbound's spot.
Yeah.
Like I see the appeal of it, but I don't have the same attachment that I do with Earthbound and the others.
Because it's the kind of RPG that I would have really gotten into back in the 90s, because it still kind of has that, that Zelda feel to it, but it's a little kind of futuristic, and it's like, it's that weird mix of like fantasy and like technology, and it's just, I don't know, it's just, and I love the art style of it. Like the art style is just so cool to look at.
Mm-hmm.
And Joey wants to throw in one honorable mention in the chat room. He says the original Shenmue. I still haven't played those games.
Me either.
Well, we'll have to rectify that and have Joey come on and talk about it, because I know he loves those games.
Yeah.
Said it was released December 99 for the Dreamcast. I still got to get a Dreamcast.
Dreamcast was underrated.
Maybe I should buy one from
liked it quite
Joey.
a bit.
He's got like 30 of them sitting in his
Yeah.
closet. And then, of course, Tyler's number one to close us out is Super Mario World. He's extolled the virtues of this game on multiple lists on this show before, so I won't repeat myself. It's a literal perfect game on every front, and it is the pinnacle of platformers. Well said. I just recently started yet another playthrough on my SNES Mini. I mean, I still play this game on my original Super Nintendo, which is like 3 feet away from me right now. The game is just perfection. You can't deny that. I have yet to meet a person out there that's like, I don't like Super Mario World. Like, it just doesn't. Do those people exist that don't like that game?
If they do, you don't need them in your life.
Yeah, I don't need that kind of negativity in my life.
And how could you hate that game?
There's no
Honestly,
way.
like, what is there to hate? There is nothing to hate about it. It is Mario perfection.
But that brings us to the end of our top 5 games of the 90s list. So how do you feel about our lists for this show?
I think our lists are pretty solid. Like, none of them were really shocking, I think, but it's still cool to see like where you rank yours compared to where I rank mine. And then I love reading, the viewers and the listeners list too.
Oh,
and
yeah.
comparing our list to theirs. Like that's what's great about top fives.
It's become one of my favorite things to do for this show is the top 5 lists.
Mm-hmm.
But that's going to bring us to the end of the show. What's going on with feature presentation podcast?
Yes, so I do want to say thank you to everybody who gave kind and good feedback to my chat last week with Laura Faye Smith. I thought it went really well. It was very different than what I expected, but I quite enjoyed it. So it was good catching up with her. For tonight, I will be chatting with our good friend, Mr. Steve Wise. We just crossed the 5-year anniversary of when Survey, his multiple award-winning short film, was shot. So he'll be coming on the show to talk about that and film festivals. So if you're curious to learn about how to submit films, what goes into making film festivals happen, he's done both. And Steve's always a good chat. Like it feels right when Steve and I do a podcast together. So that'll be coming up tonight at 8 p.m. Central Time over on the Feature Presentation YouTube channel.
You have to ask Steve when it's going to be available to watch for the public, because I still have people ask me, where can I watch this movie? I'm like, I don't know. When its festival run is over with, I guess he'll put it online.
I thought it was. I'll ask him about it tonight.
Ask him if when he's going to put it out for the public consumption.
Yeah, he should. I mean, everybody needs to see it. It's a great movie.
Last week for Open Micers, we talked to Jonathan Bright of the Raylan Nelson Band. We talked about punk rock and the entertainment industry being an awful place. We talked about podcasting and comedy. Go check out. That was a really good show. Last couple shows have been banging, because we had Raylan Nelson herself on, which is a great episode. Jonathan Bright, who was her guitar player. And we are live on Monday nights at 8 o'clock after the Nerd Cave Retro. So if you're watching us now, hang around. We'll be back on in about 30 minutes. It's at 7:30. I don't know why I said 8. I'm like, my back's hurting. I'm sorry. But join us at 7:30. It's feature presentation at 8 o'clock on YouTube Live. So you can catch us both Monday nights. There's a lot going on here on Monday nights. And tonight, it's going to be a hostful episode with me and Mr. Jacob Craig, and I have no clue what we're going to be talking about tonight, so we'll see when we get there.
Honestly, and this isn't a knock to any of the guests you've had, but my favorite episodes of your guys' show are the ones with just you two talking smack to each other for an
That's
hour.
what everybody says, so I guess we're going to have to do more hostful episodes per month.
You could do one a month.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's what we do now, but
yeah.
But go check us out at Open Micers pretty much everywhere, and go follow our link tree to all the links. And Derek, I think that's going to do it for tonight. What do you say?
I think so.
Let's get out of here. If you'd like to email us, you can email us at nerdcaveretro@gmail.com. We're on Facebook, facebook.com/nerdcaveretro, Instagram and Twitter at nerdcaveretro, and individually at jfunktastic and at Derek_Diamond. You can go buy merch, our merch, at ncrmerch.com. We got shirts, hats, buttons, stickers, magnets, bags, whatever you need, ncrmerch.com. and also our Patreon at patreon.com/NerdCaveRetro, where we give you extra episodes every single month, and we do those commentary tracks for you. And we love doing those, and it keeps the lights on here at the show. And if you can't do that, I understand. Times are tough. Go leave us a review wherever you find podcasts are given away for free. So, Derek, please tell them what it's all about.
May the way of the hero lead to the Triforce.
Yes.
Master Blaster runs Bartertown.
You blew it!
And that's an episode.
That was fun. I like the
it
top
was.
fives.
I love those. Man, I would think from now on when I do my top fives, I'm going to wait till like an hour before the show. Because if I try to do them too early, like I end up changing them so many times because my list changed from day to day.
Yeah, I think I put the final version maybe yesterday.
Yeah, I think I did my final version yesterday too.
Yeah, I think we should do video game soundtracks next.
But should I tell
Bring Joey and Wally
everybody
on.
Watching right now on Twitch and on YouTube, you guys, should I let you know what I'm reviewing next week, or should it be a surprise? Should it be a surprise?
Make them wait.
Yeah, I'll make them wait. Y'all have to wait and see what I'm doing next week. It'll be a nice surprise. Yeah.
Yeah.
But thank you guys for watching. And come back in 30 minutes for open micers. And we will see you guys right here next week.